Johannes, thanks very much for joining us. Um, I guess, what do you see as the impact of particularly EU taxonomy on the real estate sector?
We clearly see an impact. So first of all, to better understand that impact, we kind of should touch base with where the EU taxonomy is coming from and what the overall goal is. So the EU taxonomy want to channel investments towards sustainability and sustainable activities in order to achieve the goals of the European Union's with reference to climate and also to the Paris Agreement from 2015. So therefore, the taxonomy kind of established a European-wide framework in which we can assess for each and every economic activity if and how is the portion of it which is sustainable. And for the real estate industries, we see four major, let's say, strings. So the first string is around the construction of new buildings, in which a new building must be 20% with its primary energy demand 20% below the national requirements in order to be EU taxonomy compliant. So that must be taken into due account by developers. The second string is around major refurbishments and modernizations. We either can reduce the primary energy demand by 30% or be in line with the European policy and European renovation wave. The third string is a large set of individual measures, which all can be taxonomy compliant, like the installation of new windows or the installation of electricity charging stations. And the fourth one, and I guess probably the most important one, is around acquisition and ownership, where the taxonomy clearly stated an existing building is compliant if it has an energy performance certificate of Class A. That's a clearly binary thing. Either it has a certificate or it has not. So we have kind of a clear framework where we can check for each and every building if it is compliant or not.
In terms of the influence on valuations or the process of valuation, Johannes, how do you see that?
So from my perspective, going forward, we have on the one hand a clear framework in which we can check, let's say, the sustainability or put it broader, the ESG aspect for each and every building or in development. And if we think that straight, we have on the one hand buildings which are compliant. So the EU taxonomy says, okay, well, that's an economic sustainable activity, and such buildings have broad access to the investor universe, the tenant or user universe, and of course to financing. So for example, in the Netherlands, we already see that buildings which are to a certain degree are not compliant or not green in a way, that they are facing difficulties in financing or just higher interest rates. So that being said, on the other hand, buildings that are not compliant will face limitations in the potential investor universe, will face limitations in the potential user or tenant universe, where just maybe corporates say, well, okay, if your building is not EU compliant, it's not an opportunity for me to occupy that building. And on the last, and that's basically the result, that if we say these two strings or two worlds, we have to incorporate that in the real estate valuations, and that's kind of straightforward from the EU taxonomy down to the asset.
It's going to be really interesting, I think, Johannes, just to see how these things begin to influence valuations going forward. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.